And so this morning, I'm thankful, again, that we have Jared Anderson here as our guest worship leader, but also I wanted to kind of take a little bit of a break from the message series that we're in, and I wanted to invite Jared and Nate up here, Nate being our worship leader, to come up here, join me on stage, and I want to interview Jared and have some questions about worship and about how we can cultivate our hearts as believers in worship. And so this is going to be a Q&A time, but I really believe that it will minister to all of you here, and there'll be something for you in that. And so you guys can go ahead and take a seat. And just to kind of get some of the preliminary things out of the way, on the mobile app under the worship set list or even under the YouVersion notes, we have a link to a Spotify playlist with Jared Anderson songs on it. Also, we have Jared Anderson merch table out in the foyer, so if you guys want to listen to some music, get some of that stuff, you're more than welcome to. So, by the way, thanks for showing up and showing me to look like a complete hobo up here. You look amazing. I'm up here in tennis shoes. Come on, man, that's not cool. You gotta know where you're going. So, I'm a tech. You should know that by heart.
I just want to say that you have one of the most amazing pastors. You do. Pastor Jerry, we met probably in 2006 or 7, 8, somewhere in that range. And the guy just serves with such grace and such like an attitude of just, I don't know, it's a joy to be with you. And he's so smart. I don't even try. But so anyways, as someone from the outside, I just want you to know how lucky you are to have someone serving you like Pastor Jerry. So, yeah.
So I feel a little bit bad about what I'm going to do next after what you just said. So in a moment, I want you to share your best train wreck or funniest moment during worship, just because it's always fun to hear that we're not humans and we make mistakes. But I have one that I've been wanting to tell you.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember this.
Okay.
Back in Radiant Church Kalamazoo, I was a sound tech there. You were leading worship with Pastor Mike and the entire band, and you were on the baby grand piano.
Yeah.
Opened your Bible, I think it was like to Matthew 4, I don't know where it was, and you just started reading, and it was so beautiful, and you were playing, someone was playing keys, and it was just a moment, and you're reading the Word, and we're all trying to figure out, like, where's he going, and you got about a chapter and a half in, and you just stopped, you're like, I thought I'd get something. Oh, well, let's just keep worshiping. And you closed your Bible and just kept worshiping. I love that. We were like,
oh, yeah.
Do you remember that? Yeah, it was great. We remembered it.
Yeah. That would totally happen, and I would do that. We're all just humans trying to make it through, and life is not perfect, and it kind of, this is the adventure, is that it could go really well, and it could also go really poorly. And that's what makes it exciting, right? So you can't have hope without things being uncertain.
That's true.
If things are absolutely certain, then we really have no hope. Hope is tied to uncertainty. And that's where Jesus invites us. He takes us by the hand into a place that we don't know where we're going. And so he promises to never leave us or forsake us. And so that's where we grow in our ability to trust and to surrender. And that is life with Christ. And I haven't found it anywhere else. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about where you're at now? Because I've known you from back in the Desperation Band days.
Yeah.
But what's life look like now?
Sure. My wife and I just celebrated 18 years. And we have 6 children, 4 biological, and the youngest 2 are adopted from Haiti. And you could probably go on Facebook and see all
Real quick question.
the faces. Yeah.
Do you know all of their birthdays?
I do know all their birthdays.
I was hoping you'd say no.
I have to fill them out for paperwork, and it's intense. But 3 boys, 3 girls, and I've lived in Colorado since I was 9 years old, and I grew up in New Life since I was 9 years old, and I just took a position at another church in a smaller town just outside Colorado Springs in September, and I'm associate pastor. And I love writing music, and I love being with people, and I love how I guess you call it performing, but I love how we get to watch one another shine. And that is a beautiful gift to see one another and to hear one another, because each one of us has a specific and unique gift that nobody else has. You reflect a side of God that nobody else gets to. And so that comes with like a little bit of weight to it and some glory in it. And yeah, it's risky. Yeah.
Hebrews chapter 13, verse 15 tells us, through him, let us continually offer up a sacrifice of praise to God. That is the fruit of our lips that acknowledge his name. For obviously we know that worship is not just only this, Sunday morning musical. So I want to definitely hit on that a little bit later. But in that, when worship really has to be a sacrifice, and I think you know what I'm talking about, when you don't feel like worshiping God, you feel like either you're the lowest of the low or God, there's a problem there. Walk us through that. As someone who loves worship, what do you do when you hate to worship?
Wow.
I got like a ton of them.
Okay, that's good. What do you do when you hate it? Yeah, that's a fair question. I think you can bring what you have, and sometimes it's not much. And I think a lot of times it's like a muscle, right? Surrender is like a muscle, and you learn how to use it. And when you're empty, just an athlete needs to know how to recover. You need to know where your recovery is. The athlete's recovery is not out on the track. You don't recover on the track, right? I don't know what all the stuff, they ice bath and all the different things. Rest is where you recover. So if you don't have rest, you don't have recovery for the exertion that you're about to do. And so that's where, but all of it, the rest and the leading is all worship. Like rest, you're like that video of the baptism, that is so worshipful. Like that is incredible. Like you go to the beach and you see everyone just like, we're all laying out, trying to bake in the sun, and that's rest. That's part of it. It's the Lord inhabits all of these spaces, both the exertion and the petition and the assembly, this gathering, and then also the quiet place, the solitude. So you have to have both if you're going to keep going. Yeah.
That verse says that worship is the fruit of our lips. And like anything, when there's fruit, there must first also be a seed time. Mm-hmm. And so in your life, I mean, there might be some obvious ones in there, but I'm assuming there's some other disciplines. What seeds do you plant in your own heart so that you can have the fruit of worship from your lips?
Yeah. That's a good question. I like to read. I like to be outside. I do a lot of yard work. And it feels like worship to me. I don't know. But these are the things that just restore my soul. I love I'm a kind of a nerd for poetry and classical music and that kind of stuff. So, but I get the singing from my dad. My dad loved to sing, but we worked construction, and so he was like so alive when he was out pounding nails and pouring concrete. But it's whatever makes your heart tick, and you I can tell you get into tech stuff, you love it, right? It brings joy. then like all the more. Like that's the fruit. That's the fruit of your lips, is offering unto the Lord. So if it can be anything. Like my wife is just an incredible like atmosphere decorator. She just provides space for people, and it's glorious. I see her in her element, you know. That's
and so many times we downplay those things. We would and I'm guilty of this. We would attribute those as hobbies,
Sure,
or as even counter to worship, that they detract from worship, and certainly anything, even if it's good, out of place and out of priority, can be an idol and can hurt us.
Let me say this. I don't want to be mean, but I just don't want to hear, you know, when people say, well, nobody wants to hear me sing. Have you ever said that, or do you ever say that or hear that from people? Nobody wants to hear me sing.
I've said that a few times.
I'm just saying, like that, who gave you your voice? Huh?
Yeah, Nate.
What? Who gave you your voice? Right? Like if you gave your son a car and he's like, well, no one wants to drive this piece. You're like, dude, well, give it to someone else then, right? Like somebody handcrafted your voice. Like legit. And maybe it's not awesome. Maybe there's more room to grow, right? We all got that. Come on. I got lots of room to grow. But, like, let's not diminish the gift. Like, it's from God.
That's right. That's good.
I don't know.
That literally was one of my questions, and I'm glad I did not ask it. Psalm 95, 2-4, make a joyful noise to the Lord.
Yeah.
What happens when you don't have a joyful noise, or you don't have a joyful voice? I'm super glad I didn't ask that question first.
No, but it's like, a kid screaming you can tell if it's joyful, if it's fearful, if he's frightened, right? Just from a scream, you can tell. I mean, if you have a lot of kids, you can tell if they're hurt, if they're pretending to be hurt, if they're actually hurt, or if they just want attention, right? You can hear that from a mile away. Just you
can also hear from your employees. I'm just no. Nate, you're so quiet over there.
Well, it's a great conversation happening. Actually, as you're talking, I just keep thinking how you said you've lived and went to New Life, starting at the age of 9, and you stayed there until recently. Actually, my getting to know Jared's story is pretty cool. We went out to Colorado Springs for one of the Desperation conferences, I want to say 2011 or 12, and I was one of the youth leaders for that at the time. And we kind of found ourselves, this group of 3 guys, we found ourselves kind of out of the way during one of the breaks, and we wanted to check out information about the internship program that was available at this church. It was a really great internship program, looked amazing. Didn't get a chance to go, kind of bummed about that. But we ended up in one of the offices where you and Carrie Job and I think a few other people, the guy from United Pursuit was probably there. I forget his name. Will. Yeah, Will Regan, and maybe even Corey Asbury. And you guys are all chilling there in the office, and we're like, oh no, we just entered a spot we're not supposed to be in, And we're just young guys. And you roll over to us, but there's this counter that's covering like most of your body. So it looked like you just floated to us. And we're like, this is what it's like to love Jesus, to float to people. It was amazing. And then my friend, we were talking to you, and my friend, he had kind of a big mouth and said too much when it wasn't appropriate. He goes, you're a worship leader. Hey, my friend's a worship leader. We sing your song all the time. And I was like, oh gosh, I just wanted to know about the internship, So anyways, that's my getting to know you story. I laugh about that. And I think I've told that story at least 5,000 times now. My one claim to fame. But as you're talking, you said you were at the same church for a significant amount of time. But when you went to New Life as a kid, were you already doing the kind of thing that you do now?
Sure. I did play piano in the youth group, and I sang backups and like harmonies, and I was really terrible. And cheers to being terrible, you know? Like people, we just come and serve, and sometimes it's brilliant, it's beautiful, and sometimes it's just not helpful. And I was okay player, but I wasn't, I was really off as a singer. And the sad part is that nobody told me that I was off. So then I went to college and was in choir and really was like trained and learned how to sing. And then I came back and they're like, wow, you're such a great singer now. And you were so terrible back then. And I was like, well, yeah, I don't remember hearing that. So it's kind of like when people have something in their teeth after a meal, it's really best to be a good friend and be like, hey, I think you got something in your teeth. You might want to check that out. And to be able to talk to one another about our voices. Like, hey, when I hear you talk, it sounds like you're in pain. Are you in pain when you talk? Because I think there's a better way somehow. Let's find it together, right? Like, isn't that what we're here to do, right? If you would, like, loving people the way we want to be loved is actually a lot harder than it sounds, right? It's risky. Yeah.
Well, the vulnerability that takes.
Yeah.
I mean, the potential of rejection, the potential of embarrassment, all those things. It's easier for us to just assume or to head down, power through, than it is to dive into those authentic moments and invest that time. We have time for one more question for this service. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to have different questions next service, and later on this week when the videos are all edited together, all of the questions will be on one. So if you're definitely going to want to watch the video when it comes out this week, that'll have all of the questions, because there's so much, there's just a depth of wisdom here that I believe we need to hear. But if you were, as someone who has been in this for a while with worship, who's seen the good, the bad movements, the things that have helped and hurt, if you could say one thing to the body of Christ when it comes to having our lives focused on Him, to having a worshipful heart, what would you want to say? If you could grab everybody by the shirt and shake them and say, what would you say to us?
Oh man, Jesus is everything. Like His life, the way He walked. That's it. Like I think sometimes we make it so much harder than it needs to be. Like He's like literally there no matter what. And I'm not saying it's a Band-Aid. I'm not saying it just turns everything to roses, but no one holds death and resurrection as well as He does.
Right.
And that's what we're being invited into. And we try to explain it, but it's quite simple. It's quite simple. It takes a long time to get better at it, hopefully.
Well, it's easy to talk about Christ and forget about Him at the exact same time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy. I mean, in the church world, we have conferences and great blogs and all these different unique, creative, beautiful things, which I'm thankful for. But it's attempting, and you don't even realize it, to shift off of it being about Jesus, who He is first, and then what He's done for us. And I think in the simplest moments, I think what you're saying is right. I think that in the simplicity of Jesus, I just love you and I need you, and you've not gone anywhere, so it's not like I've lost you. You're here with me right now. I don't have the answers. I feel like everything that I have is actually making it worse. I think the simplicity and a humble heart in that way is what we have to constantly come back to. It is the reason why we come back to the cross. It's the reason why the cross is so important in our lives. Not a physical wood T, but the reality of the cross, of what Christ has done for us. And actually, Nate, I know you have one more question. We have time for one more this service.
Well, I did have a question, but I actually think you're hitting something really important. I think of the times we've talked a little bit about fruit and planting the seed in our lives and the things that God plants in our lives, but often we face a struggle where maybe for some of us it's questioning, are we saved? For some of us it's questioning, is what I've just done a disqualifier? Yeah. It puts us in a place where we question who we are. I think that your story, probably there's some gold in there from during that process, because you said that you began at the age of 9 and there were parts of you that weren't exactly perfect or even good. And still, obviously, we all have room to grow, but maybe there's something we can draw out of the fact that when you began to where you are now, to where you'll be in 10 years, as you face those hurdles and you face those struggles, God brought you through them to get you where you are now, right? Mm-hmm. So my question is when you face those struggles and those times, not just as a worshiper, but what were some of the things that God gave you to bring you through that as his son, to get you through when you did face that wall, when you hit that place where you couldn't really get past it?
To be honest, like some of my most, sometimes you say this in marriage, like no one has loved me better than my spouse and no one has hurt me more than my spouse, right? This is what steadfast love looks like. This is, I've experienced like deep pain and heartache in the context of church. And we're so capable of obliterating one another. Yeah. Like there's so much potential for harm. And yet, there's also so much potential for beauty. And that's where I think these basics of inviting, reaching out to Jesus when you can, and sometimes you just can't. I just have to be honest. Like sometimes you are not in a place to cry out, and I don't think Jesus is gone, but to say like I don't have anything left, I can't come. We're in a place where a lot of people are getting to that place of like, I can't do it anymore. And we need fresh eyes to see what's really happening, not just the plan and the performance, if you will, but
like the thing that we come and it seems like we come and we bring who we have to be, and we look back and we realized I've been living out of who I think I have to be to get God's love, as opposed to just saying, I really am here today, regardless of what I have, whether it's baggage or hurt or anything like that. That's kind of what I hear you drawing out when you say that, because I can relate with that. Mm-hmm. I recently found out that I sometimes go into this place where I act and do what I think is expected of me in the realm of relationship with God, so that I could somehow earn his love, but God's saying in those times of hardship, when my want to doesn't want to, when I don't feel like it, when the sea of pain is just so turbulent and high, it seems like the waves are crashing over. I find that maybe sometimes the reason I'm there isn't because of the thing I think, like if I'm doing bad or I'm sinning or things like that. The reason I get to that place is actually because for so long, I've actually come trying to be who I think God wants me to be, as opposed to just allowing myself to be with God right there, right now, and truly have a connection, regardless of where I'm at. Just having that connection. And I think I'm hearing some of those things in what you're saying.
And there's like, you're reading out of the Psalms, like there's a lot of permission in the Bible to confront God. Yeah. Job has a lot of words to confront God. I don't understand. This isn't right. Are you being unjust? Yeah. What is going on? I mean, he gives us language of how to confront the depths of maybe it's all a fraud. Like, and there's like space to hold that. And that's like the bedrock. And we can't be afraid when people are hitting bedrock, because that's what the cross is. It's hell. Yeah. And Jesus said, I'll go to hell with you. I'll go there for you. And I'll bring you back. And I won't leave, no matter what. And that's just a promise that I don't know where else you can find that. And I want to be that with people. But that's the big story. That's the good news.
See, I going to the Bible school that I went to, which I was thankful. I learned a lot of great things, but it was certainly in the subculture of everything is life and death is in the power of the tongue, which is biblical. And you can never confess anything that's not just to the highest level. And certainly we have to live as people that see through the kingdom lens, that can see what others can't and proclaim what the Word of God says. But I think sometimes we have to be willing to allow ourselves to be a little bit theologically wrong every once in a while. Because like when you're spiraling and you feel like you're just falling apart, I think sometimes there's this massive argument that goes on in your head about, I feel this way, but I'm not supposed to feel this way. And I sense things are this way, but I know that the Word says this. And it's one of those things, and some of you are looking at me right now like I'm preaching heresy, but I think it's okay to not be okay. Yeah. As long as you don't stay there. It's okay to visit, but don't set up camp there. Don't buy a house in that area. But I just think sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves first before we can even be honest with God, without trying to filter through, but I know that's not what he wants me to say. It's like what you're saying. And I think when we can do that, certainly in a healthy environment, I mean, with people that surround us and care about us, but I think that needs to be a part of how we talk with each other. It's not about cutting ourselves slack. It's about being authentic. And that how you feel is not more truth than what the Word says, but you have to at least acknowledge where you're at now before God can really minister to those broken areas.
Yeah, I think there's like space for, like, even as a community, just for instance, we've all just walked through COVID, and I'm sick of talking about it, just like everybody else. But there is space to like grieve what we've just endured, or what we are enduring, and what has changed as a community. Like, it's been really, really. There's been a lot of things that have been taken, and you can't grieve something unless you can name it. So what is the thing that needs to be named? And we can't give to Jesus what we can't name, right? It's like, oh, I'll give my life. Well, what about your life? Like, what specifically? And I think that's the call of us as a people of God, to develop a language that's specific to where he is entering, right? He is entering into this place of despair, or he's entering into the anxiety. He's entering into the tension. He's entering into the desert places. And that's where we're going to find life. That's the work that he can do, and only he can do. So we're looking for him, in the places where people don't even want to acknowledge that God exists. And that's where he goes.
And he's not offended by these things. God respectfully, although there is this invitation for an intimate relationship, which I'm so thankful for, at the same time, God is not this fragile, piece of china that if we were to be real and honest with him, that he's going to break, that it's going to be overwhelming, that somehow the dark is going to consume the light. God is, when he saved you and when he saved me, he saved you completely, knowing not just what you did. We always use past tense language. He saved you from your past. He freed you from your sins. But he actually paid that price in full for your entire life, knowing what you are going to do tomorrow, what you did last night and what you're going to do 10 years from now.
Yeah.
He's not offended by it.
Yeah.
It's offensive,
Yeah.
but he's not broken by it.
Sure.
You know?
It has consequences, but it doesn't change his love.
Right. It doesn't mean that we should seek to exercise his mercy and grace, because we're constantly living in those areas. But I just think that we oftentimes see God as emotional as we are, and he is very emotional, but in the beautiful kind of ways, and the ways that we want to be, and not the ways where when we have a bad day, it like spirals us completely out of control. God's stronger, greater, bigger than all of that. We have these moments where we realize and reminded very quickly that we're human beings and we make mistakes. So I want to hear what your biggest moment was.
Probably like the biggest instant moment. I guess I have to put it in a context because we're much younger, but we're like with the Desperation Band, I was maybe 22 or something, and I was playing a keyboard like right about here in a big youth gathering. And keyboard stands, one of the main ones, we call them X stands because they look like this, and we're just going away at it, and the X stand just completely collapses. It's just like whoosh. It was just down on the floor, and I think it just kind of caught everybody by surprise. I was like, oh no, his keyboard just collapsed. And then people were like scurrying around to get it back up, and it was just kind of a scene,
A few techs lost their angel wings that day. Yeah.
But we all, there's...
Did people lose their salvation, or was God still worshipped?
No. Questionable.
Question mark. Okay, gotcha. So gotcha.
Another instance from Kalamazoo, Pastor Lee, like one of his favorite songs was a song I'd written, but it wasn't like a popular worship song. And so he gets up in front of everybody and is like, I was wondering if you could play the song Revolve. And I didn't know my own song in the moment. And I had to say, next time I come, I'll have it ready.
John chapter 4, verses 23 through 24. But the hour is coming, and is now here, when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. And the Father is seeking such people to worship him. God is a spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth. This is one of those verses where much debate has been over it, much confusion, but there's also been a lot of clarity. I love to hear your perspective on this, the balance and the perspective between spiritual worship, truth worship, and how our hearts all connect with that.
Yeah. I think what causes us to most respect a person or one another is when their words match up with their actions, right? When there's a sense of integration. We feel sometimes a sense of imbalance when someone does a lot more than they say. And we like that, We're like, this guy really kind of gets it done, and he doesn't say a whole lot, He just gets things done. But then when you're looking, men get accused of this a lot. Like, hey, well, how come you don't have any feelings? Like, where are your feelings at? And you're like, well, I don't know. I don't know what to do with those feelings, right? Sometimes we stuff it, right? We just get things done and we don't know how to verbalize the whole world of feelings, right? Other times we see people and they're all talk and no action, right? Like all hat, no cattle. You heard that expression.
It's Michigan. No, we have not.
Okay. Gotta go to Texas for that. But it's all talk and no delivery, right? And that's the dance with spirit and truth, that our lives would be integrated with what we describe, and that what we do, we can also say. We can acknowledge the things that we do and not just do them unknowingly. And that's the spirit and truth, and that's where the war is, because the enemy does not want you to be connected in that way. He wants you to be deficient, because you're less than your glory when you're deficient. It's like cutting someone's arm off, right? Well, they're still alive and they can still do some things, but they're not in their fullness, right? So then the Lord is like, he's restoring us into our fullness, and not just the fullness of our bodies and our minds, but the fullness of our hearts. That's where he begins, from the inside out. And the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he's called me to bind up the brokenhearted, to set the captives free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord. Yeah.
And so somewhat along the same lines of that, of having, it's like when you go get your eye exam and they always see what numbers, and is it 5 or is it 1 or 2, A or B?
Yeah.
And your eyes kind of start to line up and the numbers start to become clear. We want our internal spiritual expression, our external, we want those to line up. We want those to be in unity together. And so with that, Romans chapter 12, verse 1 talks about our one of our forms of worship, our true spiritual form of worship, is to have our bodies be a living sacrifice, to take what maybe we have a desire for, or what's normal for everybody else, and say, God, this actually belongs to you. Will you redeem this? Will you have this? So my question in that is, and I think you'll know where I'm going later on because you know the clip that we're going to show the video, but I think sometimes we can possibly cheapen our songs, our beautiful artistry that believers have. It can be cheapened when our spiritual act of worship, our bodies, is also not in alignment. In other words, we can sing Jesus all day long, but we live like rank heathen sinners outside.
Yeah.
So walk us through that. Because, obviously we're always on a journey. Those are never gonna perfectly line up.
Sure.
But where are we at in that as believers, or where can we go with that without feeling condemnation?
Yeah. I just think and I think you've alluded to some of it, of the walk of discipleship with other believers and the walk of community, for someone to actually know where we are, where we're located. This was a really difficult part of the journey for me, growing up and actually having early success in music and also in worship, that it caused me, it brought out the places where I was so hidden. I remember so distinctly being in front of stadiums of men. I was out traveling with Promise Keepers, and back when they were doing big arenas, and I would go and I felt completely alone. I'm like, nobody actually knows, nobody who knows me knows where I am right now. All the people that know me are back home, and I'm out here with a bunch of people, and they're all nice, but they don't know me, right? That causes a real split. that can mess you up, if you keep at it. And so finding friendship and mentorship and discipleship where we can really get down to like, okay, aside from what it looks like, can you describe in words where we actually are, where you are in your body right now, and where you are in your state of mind? Like, how are you, And that doesn't really happen in passing. It takes time. It's very inconvenient. It's often like expensive, like meaning I just like dumped a bunch on somebody and now they have to carry that, right? But this is the heart is the most valuable thing we have to give to God. And that's what we must take care of. And if the songs can come from the heart, it's beautiful, right?
For us as a church, and I would say this probably for any church, but it's very easy for any of us to come in, be surrounded by a bunch of people. I mean, there's a decent amount of people in here, and talk to people, say hi, be a part of ministries, community groups, all that stuff. You can be surrounded by thousands of people, but be completely alone.
Yeah.
And what you said about it costing you something. Just recently, we've been having these different men's events where we have just 12 different guys go. And it's not what I'm sharing now is not about that. It's not an advertisement. It's just, we've been going and it's just been authentic. And everything's stripped away and there's no frills to it. It's just, okay, can we just be real with each other beyond the, hey, how you doing Sunday morning? And I think people are longing for that.
Right.
I know that because so many people, and they're not wrong in this perspective or wrong in asking this, but they're maybe dissatisfied with how Sunday morning is because they walk in and they walk out without ever really being known, loved, or challenged. And I think my answer to that is you're right. You need that, but you're not going to find that on Sunday morning.
Sure.
And it's not wrong that you don't find that on Sunday morning. This isn't broken because you don't necessarily find that. It takes you choosing to open the book of your life and continually opening the book of your life. Not once, but let that be a chapter that's read by not everybody, but by select trusted few.
Yeah.
It takes you doing that over time to allow those facades and those layers to fall off.
Yeah.
And so I agree. I think that the cultivating your heart, not just for yourself, but certainly for God, is something that we probably don't wake up every day thinking about. How do I present this well to you because you deserve it?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Taking care of the heart doesn't pay the mortgage.
That's
right. It's hard. Yeah.
So would you say, in that same context, maybe there's a better way to phrase this question, but this is the way I'm thinking of it. Whose responsibility is it to find those relationships or those places? Like maybe while you were on the road and you had that like self-realization, which that's probably the first step, is that realization, knowing that there's a need there. But was it a miraculous people just all of a sudden started to know your need, or did you actually have to do work to find that?
I think it comes easier when you're younger, like you're in kids ministry and youth group, and then we're trying to kind of pull leaders out, put you in groups, how you doing? And then as you grow to more maturity, you're kind of expected to do that on your own. And but as like we have a lot of teachers, like Paul says, we have lots of teachers, but very few mothers and fathers. And I don't quit needing parents after I'm 18. I think we can all, all right. I'm like, I'm 41. I still need parents, right? Like I still need tending to, And so, whose responsibility is that? There are like, we walk through big church disappointments where leaders fall. We have tons of American Christian church leaders that have fallen off the wagon, and it's so hard. And so whose responsibility is it, right? It's all of us. Like, they failed us and we failed them. Fair, right?
It's never thought of that way. It's always
not.
usually one direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they failed us and we failed them.
Well, I can even say in my past, there's been many times where my celebrated gifts were outpacing my character. And so I was in positions and roles that my heart wasn't able to keep me there.
Yeah.
I mean, by the grace of God and great leaders and good discipline and the right kind of church discipline and all that kind of stuff. But to your point that it's both our fault and theirs, is we love to celebrate the person that's doing good, but man, we are quick to run from the person that falls and stumbles.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's really good. Maybe another facet of that is, if you are that person in that position, whether it's church or family or life, and maybe you guys can fill in some of this too, is, would you say in those moments when you actually were the one to reach out, or was it people reaching you?
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
So some people saw it,
yeah,
but you really had to reach out in some cases too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's definitely true for me. I know the most, my wife and I were just talking about this, most relationships that are truly life-giving over a long period of time are relationships that I have had to go out of my way to make happen. And a lot of those are dispersed not in this location.
Right.
And so that type of thing can be difficult for some to think like, oh, someone, my neighbor, my person right next to me isn't able to fulfill that need. But sometimes that's actually a blessing, because when you are just able to have that connection, God always puts you together at the right time. And I can say that time and time again, that's true, because there'll be times where I want to run to, if we can call it something, a support group, a personal support group, people you can fully open up to and not have to hide anything. I want to run to them so often, but God's saying, run to me. And then there are times where just God out of nowhere makes an available appointment with this person, and it's like exactly what I needed. I didn't even know I needed it. So there's that aspect of it too. But it's the responsibility is, as far as gaining those relationships and having that place, is truly both. So if you are that person who knows somebody, don't be afraid to reach out, and honestly, not even having that conversation, but just loving them. When you love people and you're just there for them, there's a way of just them opening up and you being able to have that conversation at some point. And if you are that person who's struggling, do a little bit of work, reach out to people. Because I think this is one thing we don't often talk about in most circles that I know. It's something that you just have to learn on the side, how to handle relationships as an adult. But I wish I would have heard people talking about this 10 years ago.
Totally. Paul describes it as we're in the ministry of reconciliation. Like, people's heart and their life, the spirit and truth, reconciliation can happen within a person who's at civil war within themselves, right? And to put spirit and truth back together of okay, I know I'm in a room full of people. I know that I feel like no one knows where I am. But the truth is, there are people that want to know where I am.
Amen.
Right?
That's good.
And when we can hold space for people, and it's not going to happen overnight, and it probably shouldn't. Trust takes time to build, and we have to move with one another. And but this is the work of the body of Christ being connected to where we can care for one another's hearts, not just accomplish one another's tasks.
Psalm 96, verse 9. I'm going to hit you with a little bit of a hard one. And I don't kind of want you to feel free to dig on this one if you need to. Worship the Lord in the splendor of holiness. Tremble before him, all the earth. There has been, I would probably say in the last 15 years maybe, a resurgence of the heartbeat of God, of the beauty of God and the kindness, where we're coming back to God being our daddy, our father. And I think that was needed and still is. I think there was a deficiency, and still in many circles there is. I'm not saying that we're there, but there's a deficiency where that message needed to resound while still maintaining that because it's still truth. From my perspective, and maybe I'm wrong on this, I feel like maybe we have at times ventured forth into approaching God without recognizing that he's holy and without fear and trembling of God.
Right.
Not fear of God, but honor
Fear of the Lord,
towards God. And either way. And so I want you to kind of cross the board as the American church. I mean, certainly every church is different. It's hard to categorize it all together. But where are we at as a people when it comes to our reverence towards God, while still knowing that we're fully loved and accepted?
Yeah. Oh, boy. That's a big one. Does anybody else want to take this?
Open mic night. Anybody want it?
We do wrestle back and forth between the divinity of God and the humanity of God. Like, he's closer than a brother. He sticks closer than a friend. Our names are written on his hands. And to the high, exalted one. And how do we do that? Like, question of the hour. It's like, but typically how the people have cried out to God has been based on their need. When the Israelites were in Egypt, they cried out for a deliverer. So God was Jehovah the deliverer, right? So when we are needing a friend, he is like Jehovah the friend, right? But he's Jehovah the everything. He's the owner, like cattle on 1,000 hills, creator of the stars, right? So it is this like this tension of both and it's I think in steadfast love is a contest. There's this, what we say, all is fair in love and war. Like you watch in the scriptures as David and Job and Solomon and even Paul, they wrestle with God. Where are you? Jacob wrestles with God. But this is the story of steadfast love, is this exploring the bothness, the paradox, right? The near with me, so high above me. And I think we're always kind of swimming in those currents.
Well, and like you said, God is everything, and even more than we even recognize. It's almost, and this is a terrible example, but I just thought of as you're saying, like when you're at school, normal school day, you have math class, and then you have science, and then you have English. Well, no one would yell at you in math class if you're not doing your science homework.
Sure.
Right? So there's times, like you said, that we just need God our Savior.
Yeah.
God our Fathers. But the thing is that's fine as long as you don't only do math class,
Sure.
right? You have to be well-rounded as a believer, because other people need you to not only know math, but they need you to know more than just that. And so we have to be believers that are well known, are well, we're educated, we live it out, it's real to us, so that we can have a more rounded approach for other people. Nate, if you want to take the last question.
Yeah, this was the first question I thought of when I knew you were coming. So But in first service, some of you were here, some of you weren't. We started talking about the dreams and the abilities that God gives us as individuals, right? So how many of you have heard that song, The Great I Am, before? Do you guys know that song? How many in this room? So pretty much like 85% of the room knows that song. Do you guys know that Jared wrote that song? How many of you knew that beforehand? Is it an amazing song? It takes you into the presence of God, right? You didn't start out as a songwriter that was just like, I'm gonna write a song and it's gonna be boss. Yeah. You know, that wasn't what was on your mind, right? Yeah. But through dreaming and acknowledging that gift inside you, for me, I often see like a people group I wanna reach. What would you say to people who are out here, young and old, who, using your song as an example, you didn't know the crowds of people that would be entered into the presence of God when you wrote it, but you wrote it because you love God? Well, there's a lot of us who have dreams, and there's things God places in us. Sometimes we feel like we hit a wall. Sometimes we feel like tired. But we know there's someone out there who needs that. What would you say to all us dreamers?
Well, the artists, there's this really heady book, Chesterton, called The Everlasting Man, but he comes away with, he's like, humanity is glorious because they're artists, and each one of us is, like, no matter what the platform or what the medium is, we love art. We're the act of creating, whether it's drawing or sewing or baking, any of it. Like, you watch and you see it in children always come alive. They go into the kitchen, they want to make something, you know, and then once they make it, they want you to taste it. But this is the human drive to be like God, to make stuff. And he made it out of nothing, but we take everything he has and we reorganize it, right? And we're wired to do that. And for every one song that makes it out into the world, there are hundreds, that no one will ever hear. And that's okay. But to fall in love with the process, and there's such a dignity, just like there's a dignity of your voice that God made your voice. There's a dignity when you use it back, right? And as you do that more and more, whether it's woodworking or anything, there's pleasure. God takes pleasure in watching us create. And whether it's for a specific purpose, like a statue to sit in a park that everyone plays around, or a song to be sung in church, or a house to be built, or a system to be integrated, God takes delight as we do it unto him and with joy, right? I don't sit in front of the piano and be like, oh my gosh, I can't do it, right? I sit in front of the piano with joy. It's like, wow, look at 88 question marks, right? That's 88 keys on a piano. So it's a puzzle. And it's our glory to explore it. It just is.
And that's probably one of the reasons why dreamers oftentimes don't realize their dreams, is because in the world, and especially the culture we live in, we celebrate the last 5% of that journey. Hey, it's America. You can do anything that you want to. You got a dream, you got a business, build it, you can become rich and success. And we look at the net result and never the process, but God is the God of the process. Yeah. So there's so many more things that we could ask and just go in depth with. Again, I really encourage you to watch when this posts in 2 days. What would have been first service, the rest of it, it's really good. And it's something that's going to minister to your heart. But we did this last service. I wanted to show a clip. This is a video I found on YouTube. It was just one of those ones that kind of like randomly popped up and I want to see what this is. And it's a gentleman, his name is Leonardo Torres. And he has 78,000 followers on YouTube, so he's an influencer. And one of the main things that he does is he records himself watching other music videos, watching songs and listening to songs. He's a musician, he's an artist, and so he'll talk throughout it, and he'll explain what he likes about the song, what he doesn't, musically, lyrically, all that kind of stuff. And that's just what he does. Well, his followers really kept suggesting and wanting him to listen to the song by Corey Asbury called Reckless Love. We sing it here every once in a while. It's a very well-known song. And so he, listed on the actual posting of the video, said, here is an unbeliever listening to Reckless Love by Corey Asbury for the first time. And so it starts off like he does all of his other videos where he is critiquing, in a nice way, but critiquing the music. But then about a quarter of the way through, which is where we're gonna see just a short clip, a quarter of the way through, as an unbeliever, someone who doesn't follow Jesus, he begins to hear the words of a God that loves him and is for him and runs after him. And the reality of heaven begins to rest on him. And you can see this wrestling that takes place between what he knows he's supposed to be doing, this video, this critique. He has followers, he has a reputation, but then all of a sudden he's colliding with heaven and he's trying to wrestle with this new reality or a clearer reality because of a song, an artistic expression. And so I just want you guys to watch this video, and I want to share a few thoughts after it.
It's killing me that they're not, there we go, giving me some kind of rhythm here. It's building up. Leaves the 99, is that a reference to leaving the herd, right? The sheep?
First, you can tell he is a real musician because he does air drums. As a drummer myself, I air drum all the time. But beyond that, you could see him wrestling with what was before him. See, it wasn't that he was unchurched, in other words, has no understanding or connection whatsoever with God, is that he was de-churched. His story, which he posts on his YouTube channel, was that he was hurt by church, really hurt, and walked away from it, and literally would go to preachers on the street or pastors or musicians, and he would openly challenge them to embarrass them, to pull the rug out from underneath them, to show that, listen, your beliefs is actually pretty paper thin. And so he was pretty aggressive about it. Now, this was recorded about 2 years ago. Now, he is a believer. His testimony is actually pretty powerful. Amen. But you could see him struggling between what he knew and knows and this brand new life that was presented before him. And it's not just unbeliever to believer. We do this as believers too. We sing songs, we read the word of God, and we hear these things and go, yeah, but. There's this big pause there because of our life experience, because of what we've seen, what we feel like we understand. And it's beautiful and sad to see this play out in front of us. But this next clip that I want to show you is at the very end of it. This goes on for several minutes. It's a long song. It goes on for several minutes. And the whole time he is just tearing up and he's trying to maintain and all of that. And this part at the end of the video, I want to come back up at the end and I want to challenge us with something, because he challenges us with something. Let's go ahead and play that.
Beautiful. Guys, I have a question for all of you. Your music is beautiful. Your stories are beautiful. The teachings are beautiful. And as I said before, my imagination just goes wild with the lyrics, and I picture that, you know, what it feels like to sing something like this, where you're saying, you know, that even when I mess up, even though I'm undeserving of it, you love me in this very special way. But my question is this: why can't we do that? My question is, why can't we love this way? Why can't we dive deep into our hearts and love this way? You guys are killing me, man.
We have, as he said, we have the greatest story to share, the highest perspective. That when we live our lives on purpose, not perfect, but on purpose, that we can literally cause the imagination of other people to go wild with what could be. What could it look like to be totally forgiven, to be fully set free, to have a dad that cares about me? I know that many of us, we ourselves struggle with that reality. So to give it to other people seems like a daunting task. But God's not calling you to have it fully figured out so that you then can share it. While you're learning, while you're growing and maturing in this process, God is able to use you to minister to people right now. It may not always look like what you want it to look like, and it might require some time and some process, but in and through all of it, I implore you to please, more than ever before, to recognize the heavy and beautiful responsibility that all of us carry. That we should pick up that mantle, carry that anointing well, that our actions and our words would line up with the songs of our confession. So that when we meet other people and leave from those moments, they don't walk away going, I don't know if there really is a God that loves me. Because that person who says they follow Jesus, that person didn't love me. And sometimes we can be so consumed with the right now, what happened today, last week, what I have to deal with tomorrow, so consumed with our needs. How am I going to grow? How am I going to get better? What's this going to look like for my family? And those aren't wrong questions, they're just incomplete. And so for us, as we stand up right now and as we worship God, my prayer is, let's stand up together, my prayer is that the songs of our lips, the fruit of our lips, it does not end as we walk out the door. But the anthem and the rhythm of our lives crescendos as we walk out the door. That the God that we love and that we celebrate and that we lift high in our imagination and our understanding becomes real to those that are around us. Lord, let it not end here, end with us and stop within our life, but let it live beyond us. Let your name be magnified, O Lord. Let your truth reverberate in this community. And God, let your freedom reign supreme.